All right, our next little 15-minute Prime Byte here is more of actually a little panel discussion. Coming onto the panel here, we have Alice Moy Gonzalez, who's the Senior Vice President of Strategic Development at Anterix. We have Chris Gutman-McCabe, who's the Chief Regulatory and Communications Officer, also of Anterix. And then we have Bobby Harris here from the Utility Broadband Alliance, who's the executive director there. And so I'm actually going to pass it off to Bobby to kind of moderate this talk and give it a different flavor for you all.
Thank you. Excellent. Well, thanks for having me here. We have a wonderful supporting relationship with the GridWise Alliance, and I've personally followed you guys for many years, and just thrilled to be part of this today. Just real quick on UBBA, the Utility Broadband Alliance is relatively new. Launched in 2019 softly, and then it went independent this year in February, and we have about 58 members now and growing, so it's exciting. And as the name would suggest, we are focused on utility broadband. Novel idea. But you didn't come here to hear me talk, you came here to hear these guys talk, and that's the most important. And Alice, I want to really ask you first, if you wouldn't mind really kicking us off, what do we mean by system visibility, and why is that important? Lay some groundwork for us.
Absolutely, and thank you, Bobby, for the setup and GridWise for the opportunity to speak here. Just a bit of background. I've been working with communications for over 20 years, and of which 15 of those have been focused on utility technologies and also the strategy. And I think for us to understand what's important for a modern grid, what we've heard consistently over time is that communications is a key part of the fabric of a modern grid. Why is that? You think about visibility into a system. Before, Neil was talking about data having insights. But if you have all of these rich platforms and you don't have adequate data, then it's simply not enough. So the visibility to understand how your system is performing, take proactive action is important, but also to have a level of control. Right? The utilities oftentimes would want to ensure that their systems are very robust and resilient. So the communications platforms that give you higher visibility and control is necessary. One quick reflection for me is there was a visionary piece that was put forth by the DOE in 2010, and that was the communications requirements for a smart grid. And in it, it talked about a lot of things that we're talking about today in this room, and the need for wired and wireless communications, having spectrum to give you private networks. And there were 6 use cases that were called out: AMI, DA, DER, DR, WASA, wide area situational awareness, and also EV. 10 years ago, they were talking about EV, right? So we ask ourselves, what's different? To me, what's different is I lived in New Jersey for 10 years, and I saw 300-year storms. And the way that the utility systems react to that and the communications technologies, that's an important part of the modern grid, needs to be resilient, right? Wildfires out in the West Coast, the wildfire seasons are much longer than they were before. So San Diego Gas and Electric actually implemented a system that recognizes if there's a line that has broken and de-energizes the grid before it falls to the ground. For that, they are looking at private networks, and specifically with LTE. So there's a set of use cases that have been identified for some time. What's different is that there are much more factors that really highlights the urgency of having the modern communication systems that's private, having broadband, and I also think about the new technologies that are coming along. And I think, Bobby, that can't be done alone, right? While at Anterix, we're out there looking at how we provide spectrum, provide the right set of partners to have an end-to-end seamless integration so you have the right communications platform. It's a collaboration that's important. And I think the work that you're doing at UBBA is really great. And I know recently there was the Plug Fest out in St. Louis, right? I'd love to hear what the utilities you've been working with, what their experience was with this.
Thank you. Yeah, we had oversold. Ameren was our host utility, And we sold out the place for this inaugural Plug Fest. It was really exciting because we focused it from the utility use case perspective and looking at interoperability on private LTE networks and then failover to the public systems. And being able to show that in real time just got so much excitement. But it really drives back to that ability for a utility to put in a broadband system that works for their operational use cases today and has future possibilities for tomorrow, that robustness of that network. But you need those ecosystems. So we had tons of ecosystem providers raising their hands and wanting to be part of PlugFest and the future PlugFest, as we will continue to do more of those. But Chris, those ecosystem pieces are critical, and you talk a bit about that for us.
Yeah, and first I want to say we're here because of Karen, Richie, Aurora, and the team. I picked up the phone and called Karen when we were talking about infrastructure a couple months ago, and I said, gosh, I looked at this $50 billion proposal you put together. You guys are ahead of the curve. Can we jump on? Can we be part of it? We want to talk about broadband being a key component. And it was like I was pushing on an open door. She said, absolutely. That's now reflected and manifest, Richie, in the document you sent out, and in Aurora, the slide you put up, right? For the first time ever, we're seeing, thought leaders beginning to talk about the broadband component. So you put a slide, past, present, future, and it warms my heart that in the future, you actually have a little icon for communications, right? That's where we are now. I think we've moved past the point where we have to convince people that broadband is a necessary element of a modern grid, and now we're talking about how we get there. We've got policymakers and infrastructure language that identifies money for it. We hope, Anterix, we hope we win those commercial battles, but we're finally past the point where we have to convince people that you really need to focus on broadband, on the communications platform. At Anterix, what we did is, obviously we have the spectrum, but what we realized is in order to get people to really focus on this, we needed to create a platform, an ecosystem, which we launched about 5 months ago. We now have 70 companies making, many of you are here, right? Many of the companies in this room are on that ecosystem, part of our active ecosystem program. But we've got 70 companies designing products for 900 megahertz private LTE. Because I think everybody recognizes, as Aurora, as your slides identified, the future is so different than the past and the current environment that the utilities face. And so we see an opportunity to help accelerate. I know Karen and the team see an opportunity to help accelerate and move us more quickly to a modern grid. And obviously broadband isn't the only component, but it's really a key component.
Well, and that's very true. And so when you talk about accelerating, clearly there are some core issues that the utilities are facing, and not the least being cybersecurity. But all of these new devices that need to come on, talk a little bit more about what we need to do and what opportunities may be available to address those core challenges.
Yeah. One of the things that's important, Bobby, many of the utilities that are turning towards broadband are recognizing that the way that they built networks in the past were very much single purpose. So one utility we've been working with is Ameren in Missouri and Illinois, and they have this chart that they often showed, which looked like spaghetti on a plate, because over time they have built out, it was 14 disparate wireless networks, and as the business units recognized that you needed to put more use cases online, those 14 would have quickly grown to over 20-something. So the idea behind it is take a step back instead of doing business as usual and have a more robust, integrated approach to your communications as a strategy, as opposed to an afterthought. So if you're looking at integrating DER, DA, right, all of artificial intelligence, and you're not putting it on the right foundation or strong foundation, that's not sufficient. So the elements within a broadband communications network will include your sensors, your devices, how that integrates into each other, all the way to the architecture that you're leveraging. Private LTE is a technology that many of us have in our back pockets, right? However, there's still some development that you'd be working with the manufacturers of the sensors and integrating it under the glass. So making sure that these devices meet the utility requirements for cybersecurity, resiliency. It could pass the communications protocols of IEC 61850 and everything else that may be new that's coming along. You're able to do that. And you need to drive volume so that you could represent the utility requirements. And that's why I'm really excited about the ecosystem program that we're working with over 70 vendors right now that are all responding to the needs of the utilities.
Yeah, Bobby, we're starting to see, we've called it a network of networks. So the idea is a utility launches its own private network, but then they find a way to integrate them, right? They find a way, we have it when we roam, whether it's in the United States or outside the United States. And the idea is, if you can drive true scale and scope, right? Innovation scale and scope, R&D scale and scope. The largest utility is a really small wireless company if it tries to launch a wireless network. So how do you give them the scale and scope that they need? And Karen, we're going to come to you. And Aurora, again, I love the technology portfolio. I mean, the idea is to get the industry thinking as a unit, so that we can drive this innovation, because the future is coming, right? With what we saw at COP26 and what we've seen from individual states or individual utilities, their decarbonization goals are going to smack them in the face really soon. And so the need for broadband is here. Again, we hope we win that battle, but it doesn't matter. It's coming, right?
It is coming, and it's coming globally. LTE is a global technology, as you've said. We certainly see global interest at UVBA also, because the challenges are the same. Those business drivers are the same. So while every utility may be strategically different, they can all learn. Now what we're finding is they don't know what they don't know yet. Mm-hmm. So they needed the place to come ask some questions. And thankfully, we've got places for utilities to come ask questions and get those answers. But if we've got just time for one last, there is the option to do nothing, but that comes with inherent risk. So final comments on what would be the risk to do nothing from a utility?
The risk of doing nothing, I would see, is that you're exposing your organization to threats of ongoing developments and challenges that you're not ready to respond to. So you'll have networks that are less secure, less efficient, more complex to manage. And I think the other side to that is now the utilities have the opportunity to collaborate with each other. These problems that the industry is facing, it's on a regional level. It's on a national level. And I think with organizations like GridWise, like UBB, and others, we're able to share those thoughts as to how we have collective action to drive it through with the network of networks.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it right there.
Excellent.
Amazing. Thank you all for your perspective.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.